What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Acts of Creation. Today we're going to be looking into the playing style of James Hetfield. Now, we're going to be focusing on his playing technique rather than his composition or writing tendencies. Now, Hetfield's technique is pretty straightforward. It involves moving power chords around and a lot of open string chugging. And that is probably one of the most important aspects of his playing. Now, before we get into showing you some riffs and some rhythm, let's just take a minute and familiarize ourselves with what key we're going to be playing in. Now, pretty much every Metallica song is in the key of E minor, so that means our E5 chord is our new favorite chord. So, if you're unfamiliar with it, take a moment and learn your scale or where your power chords would land in that scale. Alright, cool. So like I said before, our rhythm in our right hand is going to be the most important aspect, and that's why we're going to focus on it in this lesson. So, for my budding metalheads out there, I just want to talk a quick moment about palm muting. You're going to use the corner of your wrist right here, pinky side of your wrist, and you're going to place that right where the strings leave the bridge, right in front of the bridge. Because if you're too far in front of it, you're going to get a very thuddy, muted, dead sound. It doesn't sound very good. And if you're too far back, it's going to be wide open. You don't want that. You want to find that sweet spot and you get a nice chunk. Excellent. So like I said, if you're new to this style, we need to work on our rhythm and get our right-handed speed up to par. So what we can do is we can play a measure of eighth notes, down picking, and then a measure of 16th notes, alternate picking. Simple enough exercise, but to play Hetfield's riffs and Metallica's music, you're going to have to want to get that up to tempo really fast. So click on your metronome and start piling away until you can get it. Very cool. So, the first riff we're going to look at is from Fade to Black, one of the breakdown riffs in Fade to Black. Gives you a nice simple overview of the power chords and adding some simple chugs just in between our chords. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide up from 5 to 7, D to E, and then we're going to hit G and F sharp on 10 and 9, all on your A string. You can really see how those chugs really add such a depth of heaviness. And if you're still learning your E minor scale, you can take that little run that he does and drop that down an octave and put it on your low string, 7. This allows you to get a little more familiar with those chords in that area. Excellent. Alright, so before we start looking at some of the harder riffs to down pick through, let's look at one more down-tempo riff to get everyone nice and comfortable. This riff is from Seek and Destroy. Got a good amount of open chugging, and you have some simple smoke on the water, 2-note chords over here. We're in 5th position, and we're going to have and 7, and then we have notes taken from a pentatonic blues scale. It a lot. You can check out Enter Sandman. He uses those notes there, as well as King Nothing. Alright, so what we can do, we're just going to chug on our open string and get started. You can really see when you lay in, even at that slow tempo, when you really dig into those palm mutes, that open E string, it adds so much heaviness to it. Very cool. Alright, so now that we got some of the more simpler riffs to pick through, let's look at some more up-tempo riffs. Now, Hetfield is known to downpick like a monster. Even up-tempo riffs that maybe a lot of players would alternate pick through, he just plows right through them with a downstroke. Even when I was growing up as a player, I would alternate pick through a lot of these riffs just because it was so much more comfortable. But you end up losing a lot of energy and drive that it creates. So let's look at a riff from Creeping Death. Intro riff, it's based off our E5 chord, our G5 chord, and our F sharp 5. All power chords. And like I said, he's going to bounce back and forth between the open string, and he's down picking through all of this. So you can see, right hand is really moving. Now, I can play this riff alternate picking, and you'll notice it just loses a little something. It's not as clean, it's not as tight, and nowhere near the same amount of energy it has if you downpick through all of that. Alright, so let's talk about one more riff from Hetfield that you have to downpick through. It makes a big difference, and that's Disposable Heroes. We're going to start chugging on our low string, and we're going to play F sharp, G, F sharp, and then G, A, F sharp. And then we're going to hit our octave on E a little higher. I'm going to play the whole intro, shortened version of it, so you can see what's going on. He does a lot of cool stuff in there, and I definitely want to talk about the triplets that he throws in there and the verse chug that he does. One of my favorites. So first I want to talk about the open chug that he goes into. It's a great exercise to get your hand going in this style. And it introduces the gallop rhythm, which is an 8th note and 2 16th notes. And when you pick through that, you want to pick down, down, up. Otherwise you're going to lose your timing and it's going to get real messy. So you're going to go... And like I said, this is a great riff to really build up your chops, your right-handed chops. So you have 4 beats, 8th note, 2 16th notes, 2 beats of 8th notes, and then 1 beat of 16th notes. And you want to downpick all your 8th notes. It's a great riff, and once you get it up to tempo, it sounds awesome. Very cool. Another interesting little thing that he throws in there at the very end, when he goes right back into it, are those quarter note triplets. So brutal. And if you're unfamiliar with quarter note triplets, they're just like 8th note triplets, except it's spread over 2 beats instead of 1. So instead of triplet, 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 you have triplet, 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 triplet. It's a great little rhythmic device, and you can throw it at the end of all your riffs, and it sounds fantastic. Alright, so now that we're getting a little more comfortable with our downpicking, and a little more familiar with the key of E minor, let's mess all that up and talk about chromatic movement. For those of you who don't know what it is, chromatic movement is basically moving by half steps. And the riff from Master of Puppets, probably one of his most famous, is a great example of his use of chromatic movement. Now, one thing about chromatic movement, it tends to be not very musical at times, but when you play metal, you can kind of throw that out the window because it sounds great. Just play anything you want, as long as it's heavy, it'll sound good. But back to this riff, we're going to start on the 12th fret and play every fret all the way down to the 2nd fret. You see when I play like that, it sounds very boring, so we're going to put our open string chugs in here. And once again, we're going to down pick through this riff, even though it's pretty fast, because again, you're going to lose the energy and you're going to lose the drive if you alternate pick through it. Fantastic riff. Finally, I want to talk about Hetfield's rhythm work in the song Ride the Lightning, especially in underneath the guitar solo. He's got one of my favorite riffs in there. He's got a lot of chromatic movement. It pretty much sums up his playing in his early days of writing. The only riff that I'm going to talk about is the one riff right now, but I'm going to end up playing the whole thing a little shortened for you so you can see it. I would definitely recommend learning the whole section. If you can get through it, you're well on your way to playing all of Metallica. So the one part of it I'm going to talk about, we have some chromatic movement starting on 7 on our A string. So we're going to go 7, 6, 5, and then we're going to put in this minor third drop down, little diagonal pattern. Very common pattern. You can see it in Megadeth and Pantera, but we're not here to talk about them. And it's really fun. You can write a lot of cool riffs with that. So chug on your string, right on your G chord. So again, I'm going to play this whole section. Good luck with it. Wraps this part of the Hetfield lesson up. I hope some of the down picking techniques and those riffs help you get started. I know he's got 30 years of writing music and riffs. We only touched on a small fraction of it, but it's going to lay the foundation to help you learn all of his music. So until then, I'll talk to you next time, and as always, let me know what you got.